mind, 90-year-old crack rolling over Oreo.
90-year-old crack?
Yeah.
Rolling over Oreo.
Yeah.
What?
I don't know. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, because I don't. I just write down the things and hope that you remember our conversation.
Could you read that back?
Yeah.
Well, I think this should be the preamble of the episode now.
Okay.
How I understand what this means.
90-year-old crack rolling over Oreo.
So, welcome everyone. This is an episode of I Love This, You Should Too. My name is Indy Randhawa. With me is my lovely co-host, Samantha Randhawa.
Hello.
So this was from when we were going to sleep, and I somehow I have ideas, and we write them down, and we'll say we'll talk about them on the podcast.
And I'm usually half asleep writing them down, so they don't always make sense.
And then if this is your first episode, usually the first 4 minutes of this podcast, we talk about nonsense, and then we get down to business.
Yes.
So 90-year-old crack rolling over Oreo means when I'm 90, I feel like might as well try crack.
Okay, yeah.
Crack might not be my one.
But the illicit drugs.
Yeah, maybe I'll do hard drugs because what do I got to lose?
Yeah, because those are the ones that they're always don't do them because you'll die or you'll be addicted.
Yeah, and if I'm close to death, if I am terminal with cancer or something,
right?
Yeah, maybe might as well do heroin.
Right.
At that point, why not?
Yeah.
I would have to look into because I actually don't really know what crack is like and all about.
Right.
And it might not be something I'm interested in. But just drugs in general, I think I would do them at that point because why not?
I feel like a lot of drugs have a counterbalance too.
How do you mean?
I don't know. Cocaine is one that I know that is an upper, I guess.
Yeah.
So then you do cocaine and then you do something to bring you down again so that you can sleep, but not so that you're sober.
Oh.
So that's kind of how I understand drugs. I don't know which drugs are which. I just know that cocaine is a stimulant.
Yeah.
And there's other ones that are downers that bring you down so that you can
Depressants. I only like depressants because I'm too up.
Yeah.
I'm also too depressed, but oddly enough, depressants bring the depression down.
Yeah.
So you're cannabis and alcohol are depressants.
Right.
They mellow you out, man.
Mm-hmm.
Although some people get all wild,
Oh, true. Yeah.
But anyways, that was about when I'm near death, I feel like I might as well do a bunch of drugs because it doesn't matter then. The rolling over Oreo, that means the other level of just letting myself go is I would keep Oreos just on my bedside table.
Oh, you roll over in the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night, I was you know what? I want an Oreo.
Or a bite
I am
of chocolate bar.
99 years old. I've been given 2 months to live.
Yeah,
I'm just going to eat Oreos in the middle and I'm not going to brush my teeth. That's my wildest dream.
Yeah. If you know about Indy, he has a very strict oral hygiene routine.
And just eating. I'm very healthy.
Very, very healthy.
So I would never do anything just eat an Oreo because I want one. That seems that's my dream.
It's true.
So to me, just going out and shooting up Sweet Lady H and eating as many Oreos as I want are on the same level of both things that I will never do until I am sure that I am near death.
Yeah. Okay.
How about you? You have no problem just eating Oreos whenever you want.
No, I should eat fewer Oreos.
Yeah, but you could argue the world should eat fewer Oreos. But
yeah.
Would you do drugs when you are elderly?
I think so. I would, like you said, I need to do some research on what drugs do what things. The idea of cocaine and it being a stimulant, you being able to do a bunch of things in the Wall Street bro kind of way, seems interesting to me. But as a person who can't blow their nose, sucking a powder up into my nose seems impossible.
And if this is your first time on the podcast, also Sam can't blow her nose. Not that she can't. She won't. She refuses to.
I can't do it.
You won't do it. No. It's not that you can't. You won't. It's very different.
I can't.
You can't try.
I've tried.
You have not. I've been there when you have tried. And if I were to do the same thing that you just did in your biggest attempt, I also wouldn't be able to blow my nose because that's not how nose blowing works.
Okay.
You have to blow air through your nose to blow your nose.
I do.
You don't.
Yeah.
You go like this.
No. Okay. That's not what we were talking about.
Also, this podcast was supposed to be about John Wick.
Oh, right.
But to summarize, hallucinogens, that's where I would go.
That's where you'd go?
LSD, acid, MDMA, like I would do all that if I were 95.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds fun.
I just spend my last days in a psilocybin haze.
Oh, see, that seems nice.
It could be terrifying.
What
Who
about
knows?
opium?
What about opium? Would I?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
If I am like terminal, yeah, I'll do opium.
I bet that would make you feel a lot nicer than being terminal with cancer.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's why people love like morphine and stuff. But I want to smoke opium like out of a big long pipe.
Oh, like you're
Like in 1800s China.
That's what I was gonna
I'm
say.
gonna go to an opium den.
I was gonna say,
I'm gonna
like
get
you
the full
were
opium
relaxed on a
experience.
cushion in an opium den.
Oh yeah, one of those big velvet
Yeah.
cushions with the tassels?
Yeah.
I'm gonna buy one of those cushions.
Yeah.
I'm gonna buy a big long Gandalf pipe.
And we'll set you up.
I don't even know like what the form of opium is when you smoke it. Like what is the actual thing? I don't know. But these are things I have many years to look up.
Yes, you have many, many years to learn how to do opium.
All right, everyone. This has become a pro-drug podcast now. You know, that should be our advice to our young listeners, because they'll be like, hey, these guys say do all the drugs you want. I say, wait until you're near death.
Yeah,
Then
live
you can
your
do all the
life,
drugs you
be
want.
productive.
Yeah.
And then,
You don't have to be productive.
well, be as productive as you
Be
want to
nice.
be. Be nice.
I don't think anyone needs to be productive. I think everyone needs to be nice.
Okay.
Stop being productive, actually.
Yeah. Be nice.
Yeah.
And then your reward when you're old and riddled with cancer
Oh, man.
is that you get to try all of those crazy party drugs.
I think we've said some things that we're going to want to walk back at some point, but I think we should just power through. And
Okay.
Hey, Sam, what's this podcast all about?
Oh, we are talking about John Wick today. So if you're new to the podcast, every week we cover a movie of one of our choices, and
Or every other week.
or every other week.
Every other week, actually.
Okay. So every other week, one of us picks a movie, and then the next week we discuss it after watching it. So we are in the discussing after watching portion of our schedule, and we are talking about the 2014 Keanu Reeves movie, John Wick.
And this was your pick,
Yes.
but not one that you had watched and loved, and I should too, as the title would
No.
indicate, but rather, why did you pick this one?
Because for some reason I hadn't seen it, and I love Keanu Reeves. Sometimes I go the route of, I really should have seen this already, and you're going to watch it too. That's the alternate title.
So this was mostly because you are a Keanu Reeves fan.
Big Keanu Reeves fan.
More
yeah.
than you are an action movie fan.
Yes.
And this did come out in a pretty interesting time in Keanu Reeves, because he's had, I would say, a couple of resurgences. Because he was, of course, the romantic lead that you know when you were watching, but I knew him kind of when he was, I don't know, he was comedic, he was action, he was kind of everything through the 90s when I had watched a lot of his stuff.
Like
His-
younger, yeah.
His Bill and Ted, he was in Dracula, he wasn't great in that.
Huh.
Speed, of course. My Own Private Idaho was a good one. Point Break, I really liked. It's a fun movie. And then he had, I guess it wasn't that long that he was gone away, but after Speed, he didn't have a big movie again for, it felt like a long time, but The Matrix wasn't actually that long
Wasn't that
afterward.
like 1999 or
99
something?
was
Yeah.
Matrix. And then he's like back, he's at the forefront, and we'd seen a bunch of good stuff with him, but the Matrix movies were the big ones. And he got some other kind of action-y big movies like your Constantine and whatnot. And then we had some movies of his that were not as well received. Your 47 Ronin, your Man of Tai Chi, where he's doing action-y stuff, but it's not going over nearly as well as the Matrix movies. And then John Wick comes out in 2014, and he is back. He's at the top again. So he's kind of had these three almost careers within his one career.
Yeah. So The Matrix was when I really first started like loving Keanu Reeves. And then he did a few romantic comedies after The Matrix.
Right. So I guess that's why you have that kind of idea
Yeah.
of Keanu.
Like I remember having like huge crush on him in Something's Gotta Give.
Right, which we did
which
cover
we
on
did
this.
cover on this movie.
No, I did not like that movie, but go listen to that episode.
I think I realized I just liked looking at Keanu Reeves in that movie because he's like cheerful and happy, which is a side that you don't get of him in The Matrix. He's very like stony and like serious. And
but that's also just kind of Keanu.
Yeah, that is something that he does in a lot of movies.
And I feel like every time we talk about his performances, I have to preface everything with, I love Keanu Reeves. He is a great human.
Yes.
He is a great movie star.
Yes.
I don't think he's a particularly good actor, but I think he is good at finding roles that suit what he does, which tends to be that kind of blank slate kind of thing.
I agree.
Like when you put him in a Matrix, he's good at that because this is a character who's kind of doesn't have a past, or he realizes past is not real and all of that. And in action movies, you kind of want that blank slate because you're like, that could be me. Mm-hmm. This is a video game and you are putting yourself into this role.
Right.
It's not watching Keanu do all these cool stuff, or it is watching him do all the cool things, but it's not his personality always that is the draw. And I think that is the case in this one. Mm-hmm. So your first watch of John Wick, what'd you think?
I thought it was a very cool movie. I think it kind of complements the Matrix characters that he does, or character, I guess. And I think that it's like kind of a classic Keanu Reeves movie.
Yeah.
In that like
that blank slate
stony,
action.
solid, blank slate kind of look. I enjoyed it. I think it's a little one level for what it is. But I think it did a good choice in not like doing a bunch of backstory and really like immersing you in who he was, other than he had a wife, he quit being hitman, and his wife died, and that's where he is. And they do that really, really quickly, and I kind of liked that because it wasn't a huge big emotional arc. It was more actiony and just kind of one level.
And also, if this is your first episode, I'm the resident pretentious one. I'm the one that brings all the art house movies and talks about German expressionism all the time. And I do want to say that I think that action movies are often much maligned as not having artistic merit or value, and I don't think that's the case. I think there are some of those like art house movies that are experiments in style, and then those are like, oh, that's cool and pretentious and artistically valuable, but an action movie is like, oh, that's just a popcorn movie. And I think they're doing very similar things a lot of the time, especially a movie like this. Actually, last episode I talked about how the style of an action movie can be enough. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the case here. Just like with some of those really old horror movies I talk about, it doesn't have the best script, it doesn't have the best performance, but like Nosferatu is important because of all of the artistic choices. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to say John Wick is Nosferatu, but there are a lot of artistic choices in this movie that I think are just as valuable. And it makes me forgive that, like, the script's not great. Yeah. But it doesn't need to be, because that's not what this movie's about. Yeah, the performances aren't great, but they don't need to be because that's not what it's about. Yeah. Or I should say they're not great in their delivering of dialogue or emotions. Yeah. But they are great, Keanu especially, in his action work.
Yes, and like the choreography in this movie was beautiful.
And that's what this movie is. Just like we wouldn't judge dance movies and musicals on the same terms as a like Oscar baity drama. Right. I feel the same can be done with action movies, and I think this is a good example of a movie that knows what it does well, does those things very well, and rather than doing other things poorly, it just doesn't bother with them.
No, it's not trying too hard in one way or the other.
And I wish more movies would learn from this. Like, if you're going to make an action movie, make an action movie. Don't try to do everything half-assed. Do a couple things full-assed.
Go full-assed.
This movie is a full-assed action movie.
Yes.
And it's not a half-assed character development thing. Like, we get little things of like, hey, here's his motivation. You got it? Good. We're moving on. We're probably not going to talk about it again for another hour. And we don't need to.
No.
So I think it is good for what it is.
Yeah.
I don't think I love what it is,
Oh.
but I appreciate it what it is, and I like what it is.
I appreciate that they didn't try and like shoehorn a like love story into this or some sort of like extra piece of plot. Like him trying to be a normal guy in his neighborhood or so, like something bland like that. I like that, yeah, it is what it is, and he goes around and he shoots people and he fights people, and that's kind of enough for the script.
Yeah, and those elements that you're talking about that aren't in the movie, they're just alluded to. We get to know that he went through all of that, but that's not the movie.
Yeah.
So the whole backstory of him trying to get out of the mob for the love of this woman, that could be the movie.
Yeah.
That actually
could be the
probably
first half
could
of
be
the movie, yeah.
that could be an entire movie of someone who's falling in love and then has to do this big crazy job to get out of his life of crime. That's many movies. I've seen that movie many times, but I haven't seen the movie that takes place many years later. Actually, I have seen that movie too, but I haven't seen the movie that takes place many years later after the love interest dies.
Right.
And this man had one thing in his life to keep him going, and that was the love of his, I assume they get married, right? There was a wedding thing.
I'll
say wife.
They
Partner.
say wife. They say wife.
Okay.
Yeah.
His love for his wife is his one thing, and now he doesn't have that one thing. So this makes it kind of like a postmodern action movie. We've seen those other stories. The One Last Job story has been done many times. We've even gotten the seeing that guy years later. That kind of was a trope in the 90s a little bit more, but now we are seeing kind of this new level of postmodernity where you're like, what if that one thing, we're like 4 movies into a action series at this point, but we're just picking it up there.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's very simple. It's just his wife has died. Now we have the puppy that is the symbol of all
His
of the
wife.
goodness of his wife. And now he has one new thing that he's going to try to latch onto and make that his life. But when that's taken away from him, he doesn't have his wife, he doesn't have the puppy, so he goes back to what he knew at the beginning, and that's killing people.
Yeah, and one thing that I liked about that was that's where the twists came in, because you don't quite know like whose side he's on or whose side he was on, I guess.
Right.
And you don't know that, he was just kind of like a hired contract guy and he would work for anybody, but he was so well known that everyone knows who he is and everyone knows how like good he is at his job. And so I liked that the twist at the beginning of the movie, or like closer to like just kind of learning about who John Wick is that you don't know where his allegiances lie.
Because he has none.
Yeah.
And we were saying that there is kind of just one level to this movie. And I don't know if that's entirely true, because I think every movie, well, almost every movie, is pretty multifaceted. But here you might have to work a little bit harder. But I think that idea of whether this was a bad man who was reformed by love, or if this was a good man who just fell into these circumstances because of his particular skill set.
He just happened to be good at killing people.
Or what the difference of that is. That is an interesting thing, and it does go throughout this movie. Maybe we don't put it on the script as much because it's never directly addressed.
Yeah.
We don't talk about it, but I think that is a conversation to be had about this movie, because we are, of course, on John Wick's side.
Yes, yeah.
And there are times, though, when he like killed someone in one of the clubs. It's like, what did that guy do?
Yeah.
And then you remember that he is a hitman for hire.
Yeah.
That was his life.
Yeah.
And we are willing to forgive all of that because he gave it up.
Right.
But he still did all of those things and did not pay any sort of price for it. Rather, he lives a life of luxury because of all of that.
Yes.
So every now and then you have to think about like, oh, wait a minute. And there is that kind of moral ambiguity, which maybe the movie does not tackle. But I think it is kind of built in that we have to wonder if his emotional distress at the loss of his wife and his dog are some sort of cosmic retribution for the life he has lived. Is he paying for his sins in some way?
Yeah. One thing I thought about pretty early on in the movie when you find out that, yeah, he's had this past and he's probably killed a lot of people. One thing that I realized really quickly was that he's killed a lot of people.
I think he kills you can look it up online, but let's say it's 72. I think he kills 72 people in this movie.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I was going to say when the son of the mobster and his like goons break into his house, there's like 7 bodies in that house. So I'm thinking like, okay, so he did that really easily. He did not pause while doing that. So like you can just think about the amount of bodies that he racked up in his previous life. And so then that kind of made me think about like, who is this guy? And I really had a good think about it. And yeah, I thought that was kind of a fun thing that the movie did without being really heavy-handed with it.
And who is this guy?
I think he's a contract killer with maybe a bigger conscience than you'd expect.
I don't want them to do a prequel for this world, but they are looking at like
are they?
part 6 or they're doing spin-offs of it now.
Oh, okay. Because like John Wick 4 just came out.
4 came out and there's 2 spin-offs.
In the works?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
One from a character from one of the other movies, not from this movie, and one about the hotel.
Oh, you see, the hotel, which was something that I wanted to talk about. Anyway, I found that really interesting.
Yeah, there is little bits of world building in this that you realize, oh, this isn't our world.
Mm-hmm.
It's close to it, and on the surface, it is like our world, but this is positing that the crime element of our world has this big elaborate system that like works on gold tokens or something.
Dark underbelly, yeah.
Which I think that is an extra little level that makes it fun. And it's a good way to explain away a lot of it. Because if you're doing this style of action movie in a completely realistic world, you're like, hey, well, what about the cops?
Right.
Like, how does that work? How is he just going and finding all of these doctors to fix him up? But here they have built a world where all of this can be easily explained away. Like, when the cop comes to his door and he says, like, oh, hey, good night, Jimmy. And they know what's going on.
Yeah.
Then we're like, okay, so now I don't have to explain away why there are no police anywhere else.
Yeah, and why nobody really cares that he's, like, setting off multiple rounds of ammunition inside his house.
Right.
In a neighborhood.
Yeah.
We assume he has neighbors.
Well, they called.
Yeah.
And then the introduction of the token system and the hotel, then you can just do whatever and we don't question it because this is a different world and they tell you so little, which I think might frustrate some people, but I've really enjoyed. Because we don't need to know all of that. This movie is all about, you don't need to know. Don't worry about it.
Right.
There's a lot of, don't worry about it. Look at this.
Yeah.
That is the theme of this movie. And sometimes that can be annoying or just make you aware of how shoddy the script is. But when your action sequences are as good as this, I agree. Like, don't worry about that. Look at this cool thing that's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they did a really good job of, again, not being super heavy-handed with learning the rules of this world. You get little blips of, like, no business on like, hotel property. Like, you better order a drink and look like you're here having fun if you are gonna force me to talk about business. And, like, then we know, like, oh, you're not supposed to do any killing on the hotel, like on the hotel property. So you know that Miss Perkins is doing under the table, like, dirty work, basically.
You could tell she was shady right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Well, he should have killed her.
Oh, 100%.
It's a bit of a double standard that a lot of movies have, that they will kill people willy-nilly who haven't done anything bad, but then when it is an attractive female, they're like, oh, you can't kill her. Though.
Yeah.
She should have been killed because she was an actual evil person.
Exactly. She was literally trying to kill him in a place that's supposed to be like a safe zone.
She was breaking all the rules.
Yeah. I love the idea that there is, like, also like an assassin safe zone. That's fun.
Yeah. This world is interesting and you want to see more, and I kind of get why I got those sequels.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be interested to hear about how the hotel runs.
Well, there's going to be a whole movie all about it.
Good. I also want to know about this coin system. I want to know more about it.
Yeah.
Because, like, I get it. Like, maybe these jobs are, like, putting money into accounts that like would be tracked by the government. And
but it seems like the coins can't be the only payment. There must be actual cash.
I guess.
Because if it's just one coin per favor, right? Do you get one coin when you kill someone? Because he just says like, hey, here's a coin for like helping me out.
Yeah.
So I think the coin must be more symbolic than actual monetary value.
Oh, maybe.
I feel like it
that
has
just
to be.
shows that you have currency in this world.
Yes.
And that you're like a productive member of this society,
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
Like you've paid your dues. You
Yeah.
have the coins to
Yeah.
show.
I have like these many, and so I can buy this.
Yes. That's what I think.
Okay, yeah. Because they give him coins at the hotel, too, for Miss Perkins killing him. Or trying to kill him, I guess.
Oh, right.
For the
With
inconvenience.
the car?
Yeah.
Because he got a car. I didn't see that
Yeah.
he got a coin as well.
It was like a roll. It was like a little roll of coins that he pushes across
Oh.
the desk, I think. You can tell me if I'm wrong. I just assumed that that's what it was.
But yeah, there were coins going back
Yeah.
and forth. Like when he says, oh, can you keep her here for a while? Catch and release.
yeah.
He gives him a coin.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Yeah, it's just a good little thing that is shorthand that can cover a lot of script things that we don't need to get into now because like, oh yeah, it's some magic coin system, whatever.
Yeah.
And you just move on.
Yeah.
But it also kind of gives you a little bit of intrigue and insight into this world. And I think that's what you could say about this movie, that it's not necessarily the most innovative action movie, but it's all about style and efficiency. And I mean that in every respect. This is definitely a style over substance movie, and that's fine. Some movies are, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But it's so efficient in its world building, like you were talking about. We just explain away why there's no police. We can explain away why a doctor can fix him up whenever. And the style being that it is almost monochromatic when he's outside of the criminal world, everything's desaturated, and then when he gets there, it's neon red and blue almost exclusively.
And dark. Yeah.
Everyone's wearing cool black suits. It's very stylized in that way. Yet it's not especially stylized in its fight sequences. Like, people aren't doing things that can't be done.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more because it is an action movie and
Yeah.
everyone is the best that they could be.
Yeah.
But no one is like floating in the air. No one has superpowers.
No one's magic. Yeah.
And even in regular action movies, people are jumping a little too high. They're like punching people and they go flying. That's not happening here.
No, it's very real to life.
It's pretty grounded in that way, but in some ways it's not. And I love what they chose to ground in reality. But when I was talking about how it's efficient, like the fight sequences, when they come into his house, for instance, that sequence is one of my favorites. And it's at the beginning, close to the beginning. Not the one where they kill the dog, but when they come to get him and he shoots, I think it's like 12 people or something in the house. He's just hitting someone once, shooting them in the belly, and then finishing them off and shooting them in the head.
Yeah.
And it's so quick and efficient.
Yeah.
And it's not about, look at these elaborate ways I can kill people,
Yeah.
which a lot of action movies are into. And that's fine and that's fun too. This is about how efficiently he can kill multiple people. And it's a different kind of action that we usually get. And it's one that I think is very well done. I know I often, when we were talking about RRR, I would talk about how I love the action sequences because they combined this fantastic element with a certain bit of realism, like something like Ninja Assassin. And I realize I always talk about Ninja Assassin, and nobody's seen Ninja Assassin. And I was looking up the director of this, who was a stunt choreographer for a lot of things, including Ninja Assassin. So that's why when I was looking at this, it's like, oh, this has that fight style that I like. Where I, of course, can't fight at this level, but this looks like something that humans could do to me. And it looks like the peak performance of what humans could do.
Right.
So that is instantly interesting to me. Rather than having superhero fight sequences where nothing seems to matter,
Yeah.
this is grounded enough that it makes me feel like this could happen and everything has consequence, but it's so well done that it still impresses me. And it's not just the choreography. The choreography is fantastic.
Oh, it's beautiful.
But it lives in a long take, right? It's not cut, shaky cam so you can't actually see what's happening.
Yeah, that was one thing I really appreciated.
And action movies before this, for the last 20 years, really, because I think our biggest action franchise before this was maybe those Bourne movies.
Right.
That was a big franchise, and it was a similar sort of idea. And it's so shaky that I hated the action sequences in those movies. And this does the opposite. And it shows you that we've done the work to get this done well. We're not going to hide it from editing. We're going to show you everything we have trained so hard to do, and we're going to put it on screen for you to watch and enjoy. Just like with the dance movies we saw, I would always complain when they would cut away. Like,
just show me the dancing.
What
show me
you
the
are
dancing.
here to showcase.
Yeah.
And this is to showcase action sequences, and I think it does it very well because it lets those things linger. It's not all close-ups, and it's not cutting away from everything. It's showing you everything happening, and sometimes many things in one take, which just immerses you in the reality of it.
Yeah, I really appreciated that. It didn't have like the Marvel style of editing where it's all really flashy and loud constantly. Yeah. And that's how you know that like something exciting is happening, because you only see like half a second of everything and you see everybody in half a second little like chunks. This felt like you could really like focus on the scenes and really see what was happening. And yeah, really appreciate their training and the like specialization of these hitmen.
Oh man, maybe we should do Hard Boiled next. We were talking about like what kind of movie we should do next as I wasn't sure if I was going to do Keanu or what, but maybe we should do something that's an influence on this movie.
Okay.
And some of my favorite John Woo movies like Hard Boiled and The Killer are definitely influential on this movie. That 90s Hong Kong aesthetic, you can see a lot of that in this. I think there's a lot of noir, a lot of the 40s style film noir in the lighting and the cinematography, and then in those themes of vengeance and loyalty and all of that kind of stuff. And I think there's a lot of westerns in this as well. Like, maybe not in the visuals as much, but thematically, your man with a mysterious past who's on a mission to get the bad guy. There's this one bad guy who's done something very wrong to him. Usually it is killing a loved one, and then he's out for revenge and kills anyone in his way. So I think all of those would be pretty good counterpoints to this as well.
Yeah, and I guess you did a better job of like summarizing those things that I really enjoyed about the movie.
Like which ones?
Just you can see. And maybe this is like an award to Keanu Reeves for his acting, was that you could see how conflicted he was and almost like, fine, I'll like go back and do this and like defend myself. Like, because you can tell that he doesn't really want to go back and be a hitman at the beginning of the movie. And then when he hits his stride, you can see why he was such a sought after legendary figure. And I liked that. That he has that kind of little arc of emotion.
And I think the way you put it is a good counter argument to people who say Keanu Reeves just isn't a good actor.
Yeah.
I think there are levels of what people are good at. And I think we got to see the good and the bad in this movie from Keanu, because he has some scenes where he is talking with like an early scene with Willem Dafoe. The dialogue seemed rough to me. It did not seem good. It seemed like they were both in a movie of a different language and were kind of dubbed over.
Yeah. I like honestly didn't even really pay attention to that dialogue.
And I think
I don't think I could quote you any of it.
No. And again, that's not what this movie is doing. But in me defending and simultaneously talking about how he's not great, but Keanu, that's not his strong suit.
No,
like in Dracula, he's the one writing the letters and everything, and it's rough. He's not good at that. But what he is good at is conveying these emotions more physically than most people would. He's not the best at a lot of dialogue things. He has good movies where he does that a little better. But in this movie, I would not say any scene where he's speaking more than a couple of sentences.
Yeah, he's good at a tagline.
Yeah.
He's good at like a quick little throwaway line. But yeah, deep conversation is not what he's there for.
And I feel like this makes me sound like I'm saying like, oh, he's good, but just in a dumb way. That's not what I mean. I think he's good, but not in a way that is classically recognized. Because I think it is a very specific skill set to jump into that action world and not just be someone who is doing the steps. But I can see emotion in him and conflict in him while he's doing action sequences. And I don't think that's just imagined by the themes of the movie. I think, like you were saying, you felt you saw conflict in him while he was killing people or doing those kinds of things, right?
It was subtle.
Yeah, but I think he can do that.
Yeah.
But not necessarily when he's talking a lot.
No.
And I think that he just finds movies that work with his skill set. I think The Matrix is that, and I think this is that as well.
Yeah, and I think working with were they the stunt directors or people he'd worked with on The Matrix?
Yes. I think this was his stunt double, actually, who was directing this, but then also did choreography for other movies that were probably also Keanu ones as well.
Okay, so like I think that he was very right to bring them into when he was like negotiating his contract because they know what he does well.
And I think this director, whose name I've already forgotten, but I'm sure you'll tell me by the time I'm done this thought, he made some very smart choices in all these things we're talking about, how it's efficient, it doesn't waste time on certain things. First-time directors don't often look this confident, but I think that comes through because he is doing things that are mostly around the stunt world.
Yeah.
And the rest of the things are just like, this would be cool. This movie, if I have a harsh criticism, it's like it tries to be real cool.
Real cool. Yeah, I can see that.
It's trying very hard to go for a certain aesthetic, and I think it achieves it. But sometimes, like the music too, it's like, yeah, we're an action movie, but we're like a gritty, but also still super smooth.
Yeah.
But very American.
Yeah.
So we're going to have muscle cars.
Yeah.
We're going to have hard driving guitar riffs. And we're going to have distorted vocals. And like, that's the level of cool.
Yeah. The director's name is Chad Stahelski.
Stahelski, right.
Yeah. But yeah, like I think they played to his strengths and didn't make him do some of the things that can make him seem kind of awkward or like unpolished.
Like those few dialogue scenes we had, which I think were not great, but they were so few and far between that you're like, okay, I've forgotten about it already.
You gotta have some dialogue. It's still like a 2-hour story.
What were some of your favorite parts of the movie? I assume it would be an action sequence, but anything that you really liked from it.
The puppy.
Of course.
Yeah, that puppy was so cute. And the dog in the end, you don't really get a good look at him, so I'm assuming he's very cute. But yeah, that puppy was like super cute. And a couple of the little like glances of Keanu interacting with the puppy and trying to be this like macho guy that, you know, used to kill people for a living, but also having this puppy and like kind of resisting its love at the beginning of like, okay, fine, get up here, like get on the bed, we'll sleep. That's one of my favorite parts.
And since we've given this movie very little credit for any sort of a thematic development, that's a good one, right? Because it was these moments of vulnerability that kind of pulled him away from his life of crime with his wife first and now with the puppy. So it was something that was trying to keep him out of it. And you can see when that is gone, he reverts back to what he used to know.
Yeah. And I appreciated how well his wife knew him.
Right.
Like he needed something in the real world to like keep him on that like path that he had been on with her. And yeah, so that was pretty touching. I don't know. I enjoyed how easy he slipped back into that world. Like with the ease, he wasn't unsure. He just like has this confidence to him. What about you? What are your favorite kind of moments?
I think the first all-out action sequence when after the dog has died and he's communicated with the big boss in some way and he's at his house and then the team comes in to kill him. That sequence, because that was kind of the introduction to how the fights are going to look in this movie.
Right.
And how efficient and how many times he just shot guys in the head.
Yeah.
Because that's something that usually, if it happens in a movie, that is a big moment, right? And here it's just bang, bang, bang. It's just, he's just blowing brains out
He's
all over
so
the
efficient.
place. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's so efficient, and there's not a lot of wasted movement. It's not, look at all these cool things we're doing for the camera and to show that we are good fighters. It's, look how efficiently I can get rid of all of these guys, and that's showing how good I am.
Right.
I thought that one was one of my favorites, although the later ones are, of course, more impressive. Maybe it's because that was the first big one. That one had the biggest impact on me. And then later, there's that sequence where he is driving his car and shooting people. And that was kind of interesting because you see car chases and you see gunfights. And this was a different kind of combination because he was driving around pedestrians and shooting at them. And there's that one time where he hit a guy with his car. The guy flips up over his car and he shoots his gun through the roof of his car, shooting the guy as he goes by.
Yeah.
Like, that's a fun bit.
That is fun. Yeah.
I like that one.
The creativity in some of the kills without it being like an over the top kind of thing.
Yeah, because that was the only one
impressive.
that was a bit silly, but it still felt like it fit in with everything else.
I was impressed with how they kept it from being like campy or silly.
Yeah.
But still creative.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Still kind of anchored to reality. And then there were a lot of actors that showed up that I really like. And I was like, oh, wait, he's in this? It's like John Leguizamo was in there, who's, for whatever reason, for better or worse, I've been a very big fan of since a very young age.
Oh.
Dean Winters, of course, who I like a lot. Willem Dafoe, but I don't know. I didn't think this was Dafoe's best work. He was a little odd in this one to me.
Yeah, I felt like I needed more from him and also less.
Yeah, maybe.
It's like, that's an odd way to put it, but that's kind of how I felt about it.
Ian McShane had a bit in there. I like him a lot. And Lance Reddick, R.I.P. Lance Reddick, who was at the desk.
Yes, yeah.
I like him a lot. He's been in a lot of good stuff. He didn't really do too much in this movie, but I still like him.
I enjoyed Alfie Allen as well.
Who's that?
He played the son.
Oh, from Game of Thrones?
From Game of Thrones,
right.
Yeah.
He's just a hateable guy. In everything he's in, you're like, oh, I'm going to hate this guy.
This dude sucks.
Yeah. You know what else I liked is when his death scene.
Yeah.
Do you remember it? It was just bang, you're done.
Yeah.
No big, like, this is for killing my dog, what you took from me.
Yeah.
He just walks up.
Yeah.
The
Boom.
guy, I think, starts saying, like, you don't know who I am or something like that. He starts the conversation, but Keanu just shoots him in the head.
Yeah.
He's
got a job to do.
Yeah. I kind of wish the big boss could have taken a little bit from that, because I thought that's when it kind of got into typical action movie stuff.
Yeah, there was like a little bit too much acting in that scene.
Yeah.
Of them fighting. But I guess.
Oh, yeah. And then at the end, they do the bit of like, throw your gun away. Let's fight like men.
Yeah, that was weird.
That's a movie thing. And this movie was trying to stay away from those as much as possible, I thought. And then it was very much that. But then, like in all the other movies, the bad guy pulls out a knife. And then the good guy's allowed to use the knife because the bad guy pulled it out in the first place. Like,
right.
That I've seen many, many times. And it was a little too derivative for how fresh everything else in this movie was.
Yeah, I agree with you. That final scene was just a little too done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what wasn't done? He reloads his guns.
Yes.
For a while, I was actually trying to count, and I was like, okay, I don't think they actually pay attention to how many bullets.
No, but they show it.
But he is reloading his guns.
He takes a pause. Because, that's the thing. It's like in action movies where they don't watch out for that, it's like he shoots off like 100 rounds with like a handgun and never reloads.
Yeah, here it seems to be sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 14, but whatever. Maybe those guns have extended clips. I don't know about guns, so I'll just say, yeah, it's fine.
It's good.
But one thing I kind of touched on, but didn't really say much about, was how this seems like it's a distinctively American attempt at an epic. An epic in the capital E epic, not just a big long movie that does a lot of things, but an epic used to have certain criteria that it has to be, and it's like this man on the journey and everything, and this kind of hits all of those beats of like your ancient Greek epics.
Right.
That's why they were called that. And this is that. It is James Bond, it is hard-boiled, but those movies, of course, are British and Hong Kong, respectively.
Right.
But this is so distinctly American. Like, he's not your cop or secret agent in His Majesty's Secret Service.
Mhm.
He's a criminal, but he's a criminal with a code.
Yeah.
And that is kind of something that's steeped in American culture, going back to your Westerns and everything. And America itself, it kind of prides itself on being rebellious. The Revolutionary War was like, we're rebelling and taking things. And that's violence is, of course, lots of people could have, I'm sure, written this essay about how violence is ingrained in American culture because of how America became America. It was violently taking it from others and then violently switching over leadership from the British to being independent.
Right.
So it's rooted in violence, and of course that comes out in so many different ways. But in this one, it comes out in that we can cheer for a guy who is a professional killer, a professional criminal.
Yes.
Because he has some sort of loyalty or code to him. Mm-hmm. And that's the case here. And then if that's not enough, it's rock and roll guitars.
Yeah.
It's Ford Mustangs, or
He's
I can't remember
cool
all the cars he has,
guy.
but it's all, they look very American. I'm sure every car he drives is an American car.
Oh, yeah,
well,
yeah.
usually a guy who's wearing like a slick all black suit, I would picture him in something German, for instance, but not John Wick. He's American through and through. So after seeing this one now, do you want to watch all of the others?
I do. I am interested to see where this goes because this very easily could have been just a standalone movie.
Yeah.
But I am interested to see how they build this world for sequels and how choppily it's done, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm worried because big action franchises, the ones where I like the first ones, I usually stop liking them quickly. Not always by part 2, but by 3 and 4. I can't think of other big ones. Die Hard, of course. Right. Die Hard 1, great. 2 and 3 I'll even give you, but it falls off a cliff quickly after that. Rambo as well, the first Rambo movie. Well, the first Rambo movie's not an action movie, really. It's just a real sad movie. But action franchises, usually not good.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about this. Will they stick with what they do and kind of keep it rooted in reality?
Yeah.
But then does that get redundant after a point?
Yeah, that's what I'm interested.
Because if you keep going bigger and bigger, then you just become like other action movies.
Because this had a pretty solid ending. There wasn't anything that was like kind of left hanging.
Right.
Like they didn't.
You have what's he gonna do? Is he hitman for hire again?
Yeah.
I guess that's the biggest one.
I guess, yeah. But yeah, I just felt like they didn't set it up for a sequel. So I'm really interested to see what they do in that sequel. Is it 10 years later? Is it immediately after?
This franchise would be the one that would most easily go into a prequel, I would say. Right?
For sure.
There's so many prequels he could make. It could be anything he did as his career before meeting his wife. It could be the love story of him meeting his wife
and him trying to get out of the mob.
That big last job that they talked about, like he did this impossible job. That's a movie right there.
And that's how he won his freedom. Yeah, that would be. Yeah, so I'm interested to see how this goes forward plot-wise.
I would like to watch the next ones, but I think we should watch them having fun and chatting. While when we watched it for the podcast, we kind of sit and we watch the movie relatively quietly. Sometimes we'll talk.
Sometimes.
But we're watching it and we usually kind of analyze things.
Yeah.
And although we did a bit of that in this, probably less than we do with other movies.
Yeah.
And I think these movies are just more fun if you just don't do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think we need to be less serious about it going forward.
We need to cheer and maybe like drink. Have a drink every time he kills someone.
Oh, man. I feel like this is a movie that would respond well to a drinking game. And now I have to Google drinking game.
And I think Mantzoukas comes into one of these movies.
Does he?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
I'm not sure which one. I think 3, maybe 2.
I'm really interested to like know what he's like in this movie. Because you don't really see him serious very often.
I don't know that he will be.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Who knows?
Cool. I'm excited.
All right. Well, that might be the end for us. Is that it?
I think so.
So it's a bit of a different episode, but I think we kind of got into... I did talk about the history of America and why movies are violent, so I held up my pretentious end.
Yes, yeah, and I think I had some good points, maybe.
As always.
As always.
Good points, maybe.
Good points, maybe.
Samantha, good points, maybe, Randhawa.
That's me.
Indy, pretentious Randhawa.
So we'll see you next week when we find out what Indy's big watch is, and we bring you 2 spoiler-free things of the fortnight.
Oh yeah, we've been doing themes, so usually we would announce it here, but I don't know yet. So you know what? Just listen to the next episode. It's gonna be good.
Just come on back.
We'll figure something out. Maybe it'll be linked to this movie. Maybe it won't.
Maybe it won't.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Why is it haunted?
I don't know.
Who knows?
Okay, see you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.